Cordy gave us a challenge earlier before we got started recording.
He did.
I'm wondering if we should move on to that segment.
So as you probably know from listening to the podcast, we always like to have a few games that we play with guests, especially. This one is our analogy battle. As the chairman of Insurtech, we wanted to sort of do what is sort of your analogy for the Insurtech space. So something that describes Insurtech as a movement or an idea more generally. We'll have Ben kick it off and we'll see how we get on.
The warm-up act
Yeah.
supporting. Here we go. I'm cheating slightly because I gave this at an Aon leadership offsite years ago. But basically I compared Insurtech a while ago to veganism. Especially as we were going through this transition where most people are still not vegans in the world, but there are increasingly options made available that cater towards people who want to use vegan products for something. So you start to see it pop up more and more, most famously with, in the UK, the Greggs vegan sausage roll, and gradually McDonald's and Burger King and all the fast food chains realizing we've got to have a vegan option. And I see it quite similar to Insurtech in the sense that we haven't seen suddenly everything taken over and turned into, vegan alternatives, and we now only use vegan. We're seeing little pockets make it available. We're seeing particular niches like fast food where it's, where perhaps the supply chains were the most harrowing, replacing some of their meat ingredients with vegan options instead. Where the economies of scale make sense, where it makes sense to invest, and where your value proposition isn't about how well you've reared your animals. It's a very similar environment and movement that's sort of gradually building momentum, but not necessarily kicking out the former status quo.
I like your multi-channel comparison too, where it's like you don't have to go all vegan, but you should have a couple things on your menu, right? It's this sort of transitional thing there. Do you want to go next then?
No, I can't beat that. I think that's...
He's got a strong lead.
I think that's a strong lead. But I would say this, that we organise dinners every couple of weeks. And it's fair to say that the event organiser does spend a lot of time having to deal with everybody's different food choices these days. And just the day when you could put a set menu in front of everybody is longer gone. When if you have 20 people, you'll have to deal with a lot of different kinds of tastes and preferences in the world. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's as good as you're going to get from me.
The one that I came up with during the show was it's sort of cheating because it's looking at another industry being quite broadly impacted by technology, but that of travel, in the same kind of way of every trip might be a little bit different. Just like risks are, and clients might have numerous different types of risks. And in certain cases, I want to get a fancy hotel and stay in a big city. In other cases, I want to find a yurt in the countryside, or I want to get some additional coverage, or I want to book an experience. And what historically would have been go to one person and hope that person at this, high street storefront can solve all of my needs, whether that's insurance needs or whether that's planning a trip, has moved online, and the insurtech ecosystems that are emerging and evolving give you more options. You can break your policies up. You can get just certain things for different carriers for different needs, and you can be a bit more bespoke around. Okay, well, I have this little thing I want to make sure I have coverage too, and there's someone else to sort of support that, however much that might be, slightly more niche or nuanced or similar.